Hello! Okay, so this week I'm going to talk about how I ended up getting a job in the city. So, when I moved from Salt Lake City to Chicago, I actually decided to do a little bit of a career change. In Salt Lake City, I was working a 9 to 5 at an online bank in a high rise in Salt Lake City. That's a lie. It was not a high rise. So, I moved from doing a corporate job in Salt Lake City to wanting to get into the restaurant industry in Chicago. It was only meant to pay my rent, and really I want to get into that as well. If you are wanting to come and pursue an artistic career of any kind here in a big city, you have to get a survival job. It costs a lot of money to live in the city, Chicago or New York. It just costs money to be here, but you want to be here because there's so much opportunity here in these cities. Now there are lots of options that you can look into. I know a lot of friends that just do odd jobs. They walk dogs, they work online, answering emails from home. You can work retail, or if you want, you can go my route, which was restaurant work. A lot of people do that. It's a popular one because you make a lot of money in a short amount of time. High risk, high reward. Working in restaurants is not that fun, but at the same time, you don't work as much and you still make enough money. You also get a flexible schedule, so that is why I decided to go the restaurant route. Now when I moved to Chicago, I moved December 10th of 2019, and I had no restaurant experience at all. I had worked at Denny's for 3 months when I graduated high school, and I hated it. I was working graveyards and I was going to school at the same time, and I was making maybe $40 a shift, so it was not worth it for me. So I was starting from the bottom. It was bad because I was going into the slow season of the restaurant industry. It was December, they had already hired for the holidays, and when January hit, everything was going to kind of shut down for a few months, but I was determined. I was sending out my resume to everything under the sun. I adjusted my resume so it had all of the service industry stuff I could have on it, so I worked at a pizza shop as well when I was in high school. I put Denny's on there, and then any kind of customer service job that I had, anything that was face-to-face with a customer, I put on my resume. Then I just walked restaurant to restaurant to restaurant in downtown Chicago, in the Loop and in River North, and I went in and gave them my resume. You can keep my resume on file, and please keep me in mind. I also did a few coffee shop jobs, but I knew that they were only going to pay hourly, few tips, and tips is really where you make your money in the service industry. So I was going for restaurant. Now the restaurant that I ended up finding was Weber Grill Restaurant. I got hired as a host, but they had a weird setup where they didn't have bussers. The hosts kind of worked as hosts and bussers, so they turned tables. So I was in the tip pool as a host, which was great. It meant that I was making tip money. I semi got what I wanted, and I was slowly working my way up the ring to become a server, which is really where the money is at. Serving or bartending, that's really where you make your money, and that's how you're able to supplement your income with the little amount of hours that you need so that you can spend the extra time to work on your artistic career and your artistic goals. I worked at Weber Grill for 3 months, and then I lost my job because of the pandemic. I went home for 2 months to Utah, stayed with my boyfriend at the time, and that was a really tough time for me. I didn't get unemployment because there was confusion about whether or not I was applying with Utah or applying with Illinois. Illinois didn't have my Utah work history, so I actually didn't end up getting unemployment until November of 2020, and Anthony Berg graciously was the one who let me live with him rent-free for a month. I did end up paying him back, and he was my roommate the whole time I lived in Chicago. Best person alive. I mentioned him in my last video. Just an incredible human being, and I would not be here today if it wasn't for him. Going back to the job. When we came back, Weber Grill hired me again. I told them that I would not come back unless they hired me as a server because I couldn't afford it. You have to be aggressive, know your worth, and fight for that worth. Don't let people push you around. I knew that I had to be a server, otherwise I wasn't going to be able to afford it. I was already in the hole because I hadn't gotten paid for 2 months, so I fought to become a server at that restaurant. Then 2020 fall, we closed down again because of the pandemic, and I had to find a new job. I was still in the hole, so I started looking again. I actually got hired part-time at Crate & Barrel seasonally and part-time at Home Depot seasonally, and I worked for both of them for about 3 months until Home Depot fired me. They said it was because I was requesting too much work off, but I don't know. Anyway, I decided to go back to the restaurant industry. Weber Grill was more than happy to invite me back, but I knew that I had my history of being a host there, and I knew that they were going to ask me to do host shifts every once in a while. So I wanted to go to a new restaurant where my only title was server. I started to throw my hat in the ring at different restaurants, and I ended up being so lucky to get a job at Lux Bar. Lux Bar is owned by Gibson's Steakhouse and the Gibson's Restaurant Group, which, if you are from Chicago or you know anybody who grew up in the Midwest, they all know what Gibson's is. It is the steakhouse in Chicago. I was so incredibly lucky and blessed to get the job at Lux Bar and be able to put that on my resume. I worked at Lux Bar. I made incredible money there. It was long hours. It was a lot of work. But the friends and the family that I met at Lux Bar made Chicago for me. I cried so hard when I left Chicago, primarily because of that. Now, I didn't work on any theater while I was in Chicago, primarily because of the pandemic, but also because I was working on myself, and I knew that I just was not ready to put myself out there in that way quite yet. I had some damages that needed to be healed from previous college experiences and so on and so forth. So it was really a time for me to recoup and refocus my goals to get to where I am today. On top of that, I would not have the job that I have today in New York if I hadn't worked at Lux Bar. The regional director at Gibson's ended up giving me a referral to the job that I'm at now, which I'm not going to name, even though it is a really great restaurant, and I'm incredibly lucky to be there. I just don't want people to know where I work. But that is actually how I ended up getting my job here in New York. I did interview for a couple other places, and I even worked one shift at a Michelin star restaurant here in New York, but it was just too intense for me. When you're looking for a job, remember not to compromise your mental health for the survival job. That's all that it is at the end of the day, is a job in order for you to pay rent, so that you have the energy and the capacity to put towards why you're actually here, which is your artistic career. So just remember that. Another thing that I want to really let you know is when I was going to interviews at jobs in Chicago like Lux Bar, and even the interviews that I went to here in New York for the jobs that were not the job that I ended up getting, there were so many other people there, and it was really intimidating. There would be like 15 to 30 other people there interviewing for the exact same position. Don't let it scare you. Yes, there's a lot of people in the city, but you just have to do small things to set yourself apart, like dress up for the interview, wear a tie, wear a blazer. Even if you just go buy a tie at Goodwill that is $3, it looks better, and all of a sudden they want to hire you more than they want to hire those 7 other people. That's just how it is. Smile, be excited to be there, and if it helps, tell yourself 3 good things about yourself right before you walk in. I did that in Chicago. It would help tremendously. And here in New York, I would say a little prayer, and I would do a little meditation before I would go in, and just let myself know that it didn't matter, that this job would be lucky if they had me, and I would be lucky to have them as well. So I hope that that helps you know that it is about the hustle, but it's not scary, and it's possible. Please stay tuned, watch my next video. I am gonna go back and touch base on how I am doing as far as trying to pursue my theater career. I have more videos coming as far as that goes, so know that we're gonna circle back. But in the meantime, as always, I love you, and I hope you're having a wonderful day. Thanks for watching. Bye.